Star Wars Resistance, Episode 2, The Triple Dark. This episode has a solid narrative structure with a number of setups that come with a payoff. Kaz is impatient. He has his mission on his mind. It's all he can think about, but in order to blend in order to keep his cover, he has to pose as a mechanic and he doesn't know a thing about fixing up spacecraft. Yeager, Poe's buddy, the guy who's kinda looking after Kaz on the Colossus, runs a repair shop and Kaz works for Yeager. It's Yeager, isn't it? It's Yeager. I want to say Yeager because of Chuck Yeager, the guy who broke the sound barrier. Anyway, Yeager sends Kaz to get a part from Acquisitions, basically the parts department of the Colossus. I can't stress enough how much I love the setting of Star Wars Resistance. This episode only strengthens that feeling. The Colossus, every inch of it that we've seen, has a different feel. The market is alive with folks going about their day. Acquisition reminds me so much of a real Navy supply shop that it makes me laugh. The hangars, the cargo area outside, it all feels living and breathing. They have done such a good job creating a backdrop for this show. A place of isolation yet bustling within its walls. A place of vulnerability through its remote location, but a collective oneness among its inhabitants. At one point in the show, Yeager says something like, "Most people here have never heard of the Resistance," and that is absolutely believable. That even further strengthens the vulnerability and the isolationist feel of this place. This little reclusive community, a small gas station off the highway in a nothing town that exists solely to refuel travelers. I love everything about the setting of this show. So Kaz was a little more goofy in this episode, and obviously the target audience will enjoy that aspect more than me and probably you too. Despite him being a little goofier in this episode, it still felt balanced. It felt more like them showing us an immature and impatient side of Kaz in order to mature him as a character down the line as the show progresses. The humor isn't bad at all. It's often subtle and fits with the tone of the overall show. Sometimes there's a little gag that, it's a little too silly, but hey, I'm sure things will change as the timeline progresses. Kaz runs into some trouble as he's walking towards Acquisitions. He's listening to a conversation as he's hiding behind some crates, trying not to be seen, but super gung-ho about his spy mission. He's quickly spotted, and a little Joe Pesci crime boss ringleader alien dude and his lackeys chase Kaz. And eventually Kaz and BB-8 end up in Acquisitions. We find out that the trophy that Kaz had at the beginning of the episode is actually worth a pretty penny. So Kaz gets the part that Yeager needs, returns to the repair shop, and installs the part in the client's ship, the ship that everybody's been working on. Kaz overhears this particular client say the phrase "triple dark" on a communicator that he's talking into. Kaz gets off the ship after installing the part that they needed, and he accidentally bumps into the client, knocking the communicator out of his hand, and it falls in between two cracks in the floor just out of reach. I probably did a bad job explaining that, but if you've seen the episode, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the phrase "triple dark" and the drop communicator are both setups with payoffs. At about this point in the episode, I kind of started seeing where all of the arrows were pointing to narratively, how all these different subtle phrases or mentions or explanations would kind of come into play at the end of the episode, and I thought it was really clever. So BB-8 and Kaz are sitting outside. A guy walks by and says they should go inside, a storm's coming. Kaz says they're fine with a little rain, and the guy says, yeah, but this one is a triple dark, which is the name of a bad storm that forms and hits the Colossus. The guy then says pirates like to use these storms, they like to use these triple darks for cover while they attack the Colossus. That's when Kaz puts two and two together. He rushes to tell everyone and sound the alarm. The little Joe Pesci alien dude stops Kaz, but ends up in a panic as well when he sees the pirates approaching from the sky. Eventually, him and Kaz go on the run, and he ends up almost getting stuck outside of a closing security door, but Kaz sacrifices his trophy to hold open the door. This little Joe Pesci alien guy is kind of an asshole, and Kaz just destroyed this precious thing from his childhood to save this asshole. Good guy, Kaz. I loved the way all came together at the end, setups and payoffs, and when the pirates came to attack the Colossus, it was such a fun and energetic scene. The pirates themselves looked like Mad Max marauders, outfits pieced together from various relics of the past, ships that looked scotch-taped together from a scrapyard, attacking with the storm. And when the Colossus launched their own fighter aircraft, it was all hands on deck. The momentum of that moment really felt frantic and exciting. Alarms sounded on the Colossus, battle stations, inhabitants sheltered, fighters prepared. It was a collective effort to defend their floating home. It made the setting feel even more alive than before, because now, despite all the differences that people have among themselves on board the Colossus, when there's an invasion or attack commencing, they stand up as one voice and fight back. A little isolated metal island, vulnerable, but with a big bite. When the attack is over, we see people peek out of the hallways, checking to see if the coast is clear once again, adding to the dynamic lived-in environment that the creators of this show have constructed. Kaz goes, "Aha," and gets the idea to go retrieve that communicator that the client guy dropped earlier. He discovers that the communicator is tuned into the frequency of the invading pirates because that client was a conspirator. So Kaz plays some super loud feedback into the microphone, and this disrupts the pirates' communication and forces them to bug out. And the last few moments in the episode were with the pirates and Captain Phasma. I really like how both of the episodes I've watched only tease at the impending threat. They're building up and establishing the world of the Colossus that we're seeing, and then hinting at this other side of things by showing us a little bit of the First Order. I cannot wait to see where this all goes. I have to say, out of the Clone Wars, Rebels, and Resistance, Resistance has hooked me faster than the other two. The Clone Wars has some amazing episodes and arcs. I really love the show, but it took me a handful of episodes to really get into it. And Rebels was kind of the same. Granted, I've only seen the first season of Rebels, but it definitely did not hook me as fast as Resistance has. And I really attribute it to the setting and environment of the show. It's alive, and I love it. On to the next episode. HelloGreedo, out.